A giant anaconda had wrapped itself around a helpless zebra foal, dragging it down into the soft grass, squeezing the very life from its small lungs. The zebra foal let out a desperate cry, a sound so piercing and full of terror it seemed to penetrate the soul of every living creature within earshot. It was a sound that broke the profound peace of the savanna. A single sharp note of agony in the symphony of the wild. The python's muscular coils, patterned like the very earth it lay upon, tightened with methodical, terrifying patience, a slow and certain death sentence. From a nearby cluster of acacia trees, a force of nature erupted. An African tribal woman, a revered matriarch of her people, crashed through the foliage, her woven garments billowing. Her eyes flared wide with panic and rage. She charged into the sun-drenched clearing, only to freeze dead in her tracks at the sight. The zebra foal, a fragile creature under her care, was being extinguished before her very eyes. Every primal instinct in her ancient lineage, honed by generations of living alongside the wild, must have screamed for a frantic, violent, all-out assault. But she didn't. She stood there, a statue of impending fury, her eyes fixed on the horrifying embrace. What she did next was not born of panic, but of something far more profound. It was an act that would challenge the very laws of nature and leave a veteran wildlife investigator watching from the shadows utterly and completely stunned. In all his years, in all his travels, he had never witnessed anything like this. Dr. Marcus Thorne ran a hand over his tired, sun-beaten face. At 40 years old, the American field biologist had spent more of his life in places like this vast, untamed savanna than in the cities he once called home. For the past month, this particular stretch of acacia-dotted grassland with its low green tufts and sprawling flat-top trees had been his office. His mission, funded by a conservation group, was simple: observe the behaviors of a local zebra herd, document their patterns, and above all, remain an invisible witness. For weeks, the savanna had offered him nothing but peaceful moments. Zebras grazing in the golden light, foals playfully darting after one another, the soft nickers of their communication. That tranquility was shattered in an instant. First came a sharp, desperate whinny, followed by a high-pitched squeal of pure distress. Dr. Elias Thorne knew that sound intimately. It was the unmistakable cry of a zebra foal in mortal danger. His heart hammered against his ribs as he grabbed his camera, its lens a silent extension of his own eyes. He moved with the practiced stealth of a predator, his boots making no sound on the soft savanna ground as he navigated toward the cry. He had to be cautious. A distressed herd, or a determined human protector, swift and fierce in her resolve, could be unpredictable and immensely dangerous. The sight that greeted Dr. Elias Thorne as he peered through a thicket of acacia bushes was a living nightmare, a scene torn from some ancient epic. A colossal anaconda, a serpent so large it seemed unreal, was methodically squeezing the life from a struggling zebra foal. The snake's body was as thick as a tree trunk, its muscles flexing with immense power. Dr. Elias Thorne's mind, the scientist's mind, raced. He knew that a constrictor of this size could exert a pressure of over 9,000 pounds per square inch, a force capable of shattering bone and collapsing lungs in minutes. He also knew this was an event of incredible rarity, a clash of titans almost never witnessed by humans, let alone filmed. He had to keep the camera rolling. Then she arrived. The African tribal woman, a revered matriarch of her people, burst from the acacia thicket with the fierce grace of a seasoned protector, her woven garments swirling in a gust of dust and righteous fury. Elias instinctively crouched lower, his own survival instincts screaming at him. He expected a blind charge, a frantic, desperate attack with whatever weapon she might wield. But she stopped at the edge of the life-and-death struggle. She simply stood, her head held low, her intelligent eyes assessing the horrifying geometry of the situation. It was a pause that lasted only seconds, but felt like an eternity. It was a terrifyingly intelligent pause. She seemed to understand what Elias knew. A panicked attack could inadvertently harm the fragile zebra foal or startle the snake into a final, fatal squeeze. The dilemma was absolute. What could she possibly do? The woman's stillness was not a sign of fear or defeat. It was the deep, focused calm that precedes a storm of calculated genius. Rejecting brute force, she was about to perform what could only be described as a surgical strike with the precision of a master strategist. What she did next, Elias Thorne would replay in his mind and on his camera for the rest of his life. Ignoring the hissing, thrashing head of the anaconda, the woman reached out, not with a weapon, which could risk the foal's life, but with the steady, dexterous grip of her hands. Elias watched, breathless, as she didn't attack. She probed with a delicacy that seemed extraordinary under the circumstances. She touched the coiled serpent, testing its tension, mapping its position around the zebra foal's body. Her first move was stunning in its precision. She carefully placed her hands around the snake's thick body at a point just behind the foal's neck. Elias realized she wasn't trying to pull the snake off, nor was she squeezing it. She was repositioning it. With a firm, steady lift, she shifted the heavy coil just enough to create a tiny pocket of air, a moment's reprieve for the suffocating foal. It was a move of leverage, not of war. Then came the master stroke. Having created that crucial space, she took one deliberate step forward. With a speed that defied the tension of the moment, she shifted her weight, driving a precise, controlled pressure with her foot onto the thickest part of the anaconda's midsection, a point well away from the trapped foal. It wasn't a frantic stomp. It was a press. A strategic, focused, bone-shattering press. The savanna grass seemed to yield under the controlled force. Through his viewfinder, Dr. Elias Thorne watched in absolute awe. He was not witnessing mere instinct. He was witnessing applied physics. The African tribal woman had diagnosed the core problem, constriction, and applied a multi-stage, precise solution. She used her hands as a surgical tool to create an opening and then used her body as a targeted weapon to disable the enemy's main strength. All while ensuring the safety of the zebra foal under her care. The anaconda, its own body now being crushed under the focused pressure of the woman's deliberate press, convulsed violently. Its powerful coils, the instruments of death, went slack. With a final desperate heave, the great snake uncoiled itself and slithered away into the dense savanna undergrowth, defeated not by blind rage, but by sheer breathtaking intelligence. The monster was gone. The clearing was suddenly eerily quiet again, the silence broken only by the woman's soft, murmured chants and the whisper of the wind through the acacia leaves. But the battle was far from over. In the silence of the aftermath, a new, more insidious kind of dread descended. The fight for survival had only just begun. The zebra foal was free, but it wasn't moving. It lay limp in the flattened grass, a small striped mound of utter exhaustion. The woman knelt beside it, her hands gently touching its side, a soft, desperate plea for a response. She spoke in low, soothing tones, the sound a mixture of encouragement and rising panic. But the foal remained motionless, its small chest barely rising and falling with the shallowest of breaths. It had survived the monster's embrace, but the ordeal had drained its fragile life force, pushing it into the dangerous depths of shock. Dr. Elias Thorne lowered his camera, the weight of it suddenly feeling immense. The footage Dr. Elias Thorne had just captured was priceless, a career-defining moment. But in front of him, the fragile life of the zebra foal hung by a thread. He was a scientist and observer. The cardinal rule of his profession was non-interference. To intervene was to contaminate the data, to alter the natural course of events. But as Dr. Elias Thorne watched the African tribal woman's desperate attempts to revive the zebra foal under her care, he knew the line between observer and participant had vanished. Inaction was no longer a scientific principle. It was a moral failure. Breaking years of deeply ingrained field protocol, Elias reached for his satellite phone. His fingers fumbled slightly as he keyed in the number. He made the call to the one person in the region he knew could help. Dr. Elias Thorne spoke quickly, his voice low but urgent, relaying the situation to Ranger Sarah Kweku. A zebra foal, post-constriction, unresponsive and going into shock. He gave his coordinates. Help was on its way, but time was the enemy now. The African tribal woman continued her frantic, gentle work, touching and murmuring softly, trying to coax the zebra foal back to life. Dr. Elias Thorne could only watch and wait, the minutes stretching into an agonizing eternity. Finally, a distant mechanical rumble grew steadily louder. A jeep, expertly navigating the rough savanna terrain, emerged into the clearing. Ranger Sarah Kweku, a seasoned conservationist with a calm, reassuring demeanor and a large, well-stocked medical kit, stepped out. She and Elias exchanged a single, knowing look. Now two worlds, the world of scientific observation and the world of hands-on rescue, would have to work together to save this one small life. What happened next was a testament not only to the woman's unyielding care for the zebra foal, but to the powerful, unspoken trust that can form between species in the most desperate of times. As Ranger Sarah Kweku approached with her medical kit, the African tribal woman tensed, her body a wall of protective anxiety. But she didn't charge. She watched, her intelligent eyes tracking Sarah's every move. Under her intense gaze, Sarah and Elias went to work. They were quiet, slow, and efficient. Sarah spoke in a low, calm monologue, not to the foal, but to the woman, reassuring her with the tone of her voice. She knelt beside the zebra foal and expertly found a vein, administering a saline drip to combat the dehydration and shock. She followed it with a mild stimulant, a drug designed to kickstart the exhausted system. The woman stood her ground just feet away, a silent, powerful guardian, seeming to understand that these humans were there not to harm, but to help. It was a profound moment of interspecies communication, a bridge of trust built in a shared crisis. Minutes felt like hours. The sun beat down on the savanna clearing. Elias held the saline bag steady, his eyes fixed on the foal's side, praying for a sign. Then it came. A tiny flicker of an ear, a soft, weary sigh. The zebra foal's leg twitched. Encouraged, the African tribal woman let out a soft, resonant chant, a melodic call back to the world of the living. With that sound as its anchor, the foal struggled. It tried to lift its head, then fell back. It tried again. With gentle encouragement from Dr. Elias Thorne and Ranger Sarah Kweku, and the constant, loving chants from the African tribal woman, the zebra foal shakily, clumsily got to its feet. It swayed for a moment, disoriented, and then stumbled directly to the woman's side, pressing its small body against her steady, comforting presence. The woman immediately knelt beside it, her hands gently cradling its trembling form in an embrace of pure, unadulterated care and overwhelming relief. Before turning to guide the foal away, the matriarch paused. She turned her head and looked directly at the two rescuers. There were no sounds, no grand gestures, but in her eyes, Elias saw a look of profound, silent acknowledgement. It was a look of gratitude that transcended language. What Dr. Thorne recorded that day wasn't just a snake attack. It was a lesson, a powerful, unforgettable lesson that the fierce care of a protector can inspire strategy over strength, and that intelligence in the natural world is far deeper and more complex than we can ever imagine. It's a reminder that we are not separate from nature, but an intricate part of it, with the power to be its witness, its student, and sometimes its guardian. This encounter didn't just give a zebra foal a second chance at life. It gave two rescuers a story that would forever redefine their understanding of the world. It proved that in the wild, as in our own lives, the most unthinkable challenges can often be overcome by an even more unthinkable love.